line audio up. So this is episode 3. Sweet. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to installment number 3, episode 3 of B Street Podcast. Thank you for tuning in again. This week we have Jacob Schwasnick with us and here to share his story. Really excited to hear what you have to say. And
yeah, I'm excited to be here too. It's a really cool setup you got.
I'm still pumped about it. It was Ben and I just kind of doing the first episode and recording that, and it was like super exciting because it was the first one, and still even now on the third one I'm like, this is just cool. It's fun, it's different, it's like not standing in the youth room and talking to everyone, which is great. It's just this is a different feel, and so
it's got like the podcast feel. Like it feels pretty cool. I've never done anything like it.
Me either, so I'm definitely digging it. Well, Jacob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? How old are you? Where do you go to school? What do you do for fun?
So I'm a sophomore at JL Mann. I've pretty much grown up in Greenville and been in Buncombe Street my whole life. I enjoy pretty much all sports. I play soccer and run cross country for JL Mann. Enjoy college football a lot, just anything to do with sports.
Yeah, and you said you had a track workout.
This morning. We ran this morning. I had to get up early to run a workout.
6:30? It's early. Was it good?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Do you feel like you're faster now than you were before the workout?
Well, I feel like I'm more tired. I'm not sure if I actually got faster.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to go and do the practice, huh?
You got to put in the work to get a result.
Do you have anything else or any other practice today, or y'all just doing like one a day?
We have the morning workout, but we don't have anything else. We actually have this weekend no races. We're just gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's nice. We got a relaxing weekend.
Cool. Do you have to get a certain amount of miles in this weekend?
No. I
Totally
actually have soccer games, so that's technically my cross training. I got to go to Columbia tonight.
Oh,
or
wow.
Tomorrow night, actually, not tonight.
Cool. Well, I guess let's get going. So, with where all stories start at the beginning, what would you say, or where would you say your story with Jesus begins?
So, a lot like probably most of the people that are, like Ben and Charlie, I know they've grown up in the church their whole life, and it's a lot of the same way for me. Just as long as far back I can remember, Christianity's been a part of my life, with my parents teaching it, growing up in the church, Sunday school, confirmation, the whole deal. It's just been as long as I can remember. Just
kind of been something that you've always been around.
Yeah, it's always been there for me.
Are there any like specific conversations or maybe a class you were at, or just something where you remember like talking about Jesus for the first time or hearing about it, like even though you've been a part of it your whole life? Is there anything specific that I know that's a long time to remember back to, but if there's not, that's fine. I wonder if there is.
Well, probably some of just the CDC, the Sunday schools we'd have, or what was it called? When you walk out in the middle of church with the younger group. You remember that? Miss Gail used to do it. We used to walk into a different room with all the kids.
Oh, like kids.com?
Yeah, kids.com. Yeah. Okay. I remember we'd walk into the sanctuary and we'd have discussions about Jesus when normal church was going. I remember a few of those. Okay, cool. So is there a time where you remember experiencing the presence of God for the first time? So like, you've heard about experiencing the presence of God and you remember this time and it's like, this is it. I'm here. So, church retreats have always been a big thing for me. I grew up going to Camp Mosley, and I absolutely love Asbury Hills. I always feel I have a little connection to that place. So I'd say the first time, or some of the first times I recognized that felt the presence of God was at worship in Asbury Hills. Whether we went up to the mountain chapel or the lake chapel, but when we were out there singing songs, I felt like that was one of the first few times I'd ever felt the presence of God.
Do you remember like anything about it? Like what would have made you recognize that?
I don't know. I think I just felt probably chills and just mentally recognized for one of the first times that God is moving throughout this congregation, I guess.
Do you think, so I think a lot of times whenever we go to camps and things like that, it's a lot easier to recognize the presence of God because a lot of times there's just fewer distractions. And so do you think that being like at Asbury Hills where you're in the middle of the woods, there are no other distractions, do you think that helps in recognizing the presence of God?
Yeah, for sure. Even when I just go out and with all the bustle of just everyday life, I feel like even when you just go out and you get some peace and quiet, whether you're in nature or even just in your house, but you eliminate all distractions, it's a lot easier to focus and feel God move more when you're just not all this extra noise, or when you're at Asbury Hills.
Yeah, so just like being able to recreate the place or the space that you
like
feel.
The feel.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's cool. I think that is one of the cool things about camp is that it allows you to know that that's possible, and it can't just be possible there. You would have to be able to recreate it. So that's cool that you're able to do that. Do you think? Okay, so a time where you've experienced doubt or you've had a doubt about God. Do you know, or can you think of a time, an experience that you've had with that? Has there been resolution? Are you still trying to resolve it?
So I think I can't really think of a super specific time, but I feel like just when you get stressed or anxious about schoolwork or performing well in sports, like you don't perform well or you don't do well in school, you often have doubts about God's plan for you. But so my resolution is basically just like slowly learning along with the lessons, like slowly learning the lesson of just to trust in Him and trust in His plan that He has for us has been a big part of me trying to resolve just ever doubting.
So what do you think is tough about trusting God?
Well, it's just like I feel like you just can't see Him. Like, it's hard to know He's there all the time. So, like, I feel like with humans, we're a lot of, I see it, I believe it, I can feel it, I believe it, that kind of stuff. But with God, it's more of a mental thing rather than you use your senses, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, like you and me sitting across the table right now. Like, you can see me, I can see you as people, and we are in the same space. And so it's a lot easier for, me to be able to tell you something or you to tell me something, and we comprehend it in the same way. But, even we're told in Scripture that the invisible qualities of God are seen everywhere, like in His creation. Like, we see evidence of God. And I think sometimes it's tough to really remember and grasp and wrap our minds around the fact that even though we might not see Him as a human, we still see Him all around. And I think that makes it tough. Does that make sense?
Well, sometimes it's hard to recognize that it's God working. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so like with everyday life, He's definitely here, He's definitely moving, and He's definitely doing stuff, but I feel like sometimes we're just so caught up in everyday life that it's just, we don't take the time to notice, hey, that was really cool what happened today. It has to be God, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really good perspective, man. And just to be able to recognize that now and know that that's just part of building a relationship. Everyone's trying to figure that out, and so to be able to start working on it sooner is really cool. So currently, right now, do you have a favorite Bible verse? And do you know any of the context around it, like why it's there? What do you have?
So one of the ones I've really liked is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future. And I was doing some research, and I figured out that let me look here. So the context of this verse is God gave the verse to the Israelites during a time of punishment and exile from God. But Jeremiah tells this verse to a false prophet that was basically declaring that the Israelites would be freed soon. But that's not actually what happens. So my interpretation of what this verse actually means was the verse does mean that God has a plan for you, but it's not necessarily always the plan that you want to have or that you think you should have or what you think is best for you, is how I took the interpretation of the verse once I figured out the true meaning.
Let's go. That's so good. Yeah, I think that is like definitely headed in the right direction, because so often people take that verse and, give it to it's kind of like when we were talking about the Philippians 4:13, right?
Yeah.
People take that and give it as like a sentiment of success or achieving a goal, and I think that particular verse has that same kind of connotation around it. Like you can give it to someone as everything's going to be okay, and it's going to work out the way that you want it to. It's like, no, it's not. They were promised into slavery, and it wasn't going to be a good time, and it was going to be a lot of persecution. And so how do you think, or did you put any thought into how that applies to us, or how you can practically apply that?
Well, I was thinking everyone goes through tough times at some point in their life, but I feel like along with the God has a plan for you, like it's there for a reason, to help you overcome and maybe to even help you find God during the time. But you may be thinking like the right thing is for it to end immediately, but maybe that's not what the plan that God wants for you, or God's idea of what he had, is what I was thinking.
Yeah, so ultimately, I like how you said to find God. So ultimately to pursue God, basically to pursue God in whatever life event is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. How do you think your faith has changed within the last year?
In the last year,
there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in the last year. I don't know if you've been keeping up.
A key word for me, I'd put it just all in one word of trust. Just learning to trust in God more and trust in his plan, and through all the craziness that's happened, just to have that core trust that no matter what happens, God's gonna make what happen right, pretty much. Like, what God wants to happen is gonna happen.
Are there any ways that you have been able to practice that? Do you have any specific examples, or? And that kind of leads into my next question, so we can kind of tie those together, is what has been a pivotal moment in your relationship with Christ?
So, I feel like trust is a hard thing to practice. It's hard to explain, but I feel like in real life you can trust someone, but to trust something you can't see, like God, I feel like it's hard to practice. I feel like it's just there. I don't know if that's just not a good interpretation, but I feel like just practicing, maybe when you feel down or when you're not feeling good or going through a hard time, just practice saying to yourself, I know God is here with me. I know he's going to help me. That kind of stuff maybe could help your trust in God.
Yeah, I think I can go with that. Yeah, I can see that. Do you so pivotal moment? Do you have a pivotal moment in your relationship?
Like Ben was saying, I've never had a big aha moment. Like, it's never been, I've been really down and I found God in a dark place and it helped to bring me back. It's never been like one of these big moments. But at Walk with Christ a few years ago, I remember when we did group prayer, I just remember feeling God move throughout everyone there, and I was just thinking, wow, I can feel God's presence, and I know He's here. And it was just a really powerful experience for me that I guess just helped me strengthen my trust and know He's with us, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get. I didn't want to get off the trust thing, but I felt like we'd be able to have more talking about that, because I think that aha moment that we keep coming back to, I think that hangs people up a lot. Like I haven't had this aha moment, like this thing that has happened. And I like the word pivotal moment, because pivotal and aha I think are different things. And aha has to be like, oh, this light bulb has come on and it's been this whole crazy thing. And pivotal is more like, I was going in this direction, and I learned this about God, and so now I'm going in this direction, and I learned this about God, and now I'm going in this direction. I just didn't know. It's not that I was wrong or anything like that. I just learned something new. And in each of those moments, I think you learn to trust God more, and it's less of something that you worry about and more of something that you just know this is who God is and how He works. And so like in the walk with Christ example, to be able to experience God in that time would have had to have been different than experiencing God, that first time at Asbury Hills. It's just a different experience because you know God on a different level now, right? And so God doesn't have to communicate to you in this way because you've already learned that. And now He's ready to start doing something different. And so even though it might be tough to put, okay, this is how I trusted here, this is how I trusted here, this is how I trusted here, it's more of, well, I don't have to worry about this stuff because I've learned it and I incorporate it regularly. And so now I get to experience God this way, because there's always going to be a new way for Him to relate to us. And so I think being able to look back over your past, I think this is what's so awesome about testimonies and stories, is that you can look over your past and go, oh, that's where that was happening.
Yeah, it's been interesting for me with these questions, just looking back, and it's actually helped me define my relationship with Christ more than and learn more than what I actually thought I knew about it.
Yeah.
And going back to the pivotal moments, I feel like you're right, with the change, with the walk with Christ example, I felt something new, and I felt like God was watching over me, and I felt like just with the prayer, just knowing that with this group of people, we're all going through the same thing, but God's with us. It was just a really cool experience for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love to hear that. Okay, so you've said trust. What are some other lessons that you might be learning right now?
So like we already talked about, God has a plan for everything, but so when something unexpected or bad, or say I don't do well in a sports game and I get down, it's for a reason. So it's back to trust again, learning just God has a plan. And so that's been a big lesson I've been learning. Another one is patience, learning to have patience, because I actually read something the other day. I forget what it was. That was really cool, that puts it in perspective. God's been alive for billions of years. So
Forever,
for us, what may seem like a long time to wait for something actually is nothing to Him. So it put it in perspective, maybe when we feel like we're hanging on the edge or waiting for God to do something for us, it's actually just what He wants, and it's when the right time comes, He knows. That kind of thing. So learning to be patient and not get angry because something's not happening, that kind of stuff. I feel like I've been learning, trying to be more patient, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny how patience and trust kind of go together, because a lot of times growing in trust means that you have to be patient on someone else's plan. And so, those two kind of run together.
Well, it's all going back to the God has a plan for you.
Yeah.
That seems to be a main theme amongst faith in my testimony.
Yeah, that's cool. So who would you say are your biggest role models? It doesn't have to be a celebrity. It can be, practically in your life. And then, have you ever given any thought to God's calling in your life?
Well, it was actually pretty funny. I was going through the questions, and I saw the role models, and I wrote down Jesus. Which, you think about it, it's true. Like, you're supposed to follow what he does and that kind of stuff, and follow his teaching. So I feel like just sometimes, even when you're going through a tough time, looking back to the Bible and what Jesus says and what God wants you to do can help, not necessarily be a role model, but to help you. And then I'd say my parents and my family, because they've just always been there for me. Whenever I have a question about my faith, I don't feel any anxiety, or I don't feel like I can't ask them. So I'd always ask them if I ever had a question about faith. My grandparents are very spiritual as well, so it's just having not only my parents but their parents, seeing them dedicated to the faith. It's just given me confidence and given me kind of a want to seize my faith, I guess.
Yeah. And being able to have that family that you can talk to and count on, to be able to talk to without having to feel, like you said, anxiety or anything about going to them. It's pretty cool.
It's really nice, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, dude, that is what we've got. So I appreciate you taking some time to share your story and talk about what God is doing in your life right now.
It's no problem. It was a really cool experience.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to sit down and talk with you. Okay, well, thanks again for tuning in. Can't wait for the next episode. And yeah, I think that's about it. You got anything else you want to say?
No, not really.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. If you see Jacob Schwasnick walking around the church, make sure to say something to him. I'm sure he would love to talk to you.
Yes, I would.
Really?
Don't mind.
Would you love it?
I actually would, yeah. I enjoy talking to people.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, with that being said, we're out. Peace.